So your friends told you to build a custom build, and you don't know what parts to buy. Well, lucky for you, the Don's got your back with this brand new video series. We're going to be going through every single component and just discuss what to get, why to get it, and just trying to equip you with as much knowledge as possible so that when you want to build a computer, you know what to look for and you can take professional recommendations with you. One of the best things about a custom build is that it's exactly that. It's custom. But if you don't know what any of the differences are, you might be stuck and not really knowing, okay, I get that my friends told me to build a computer, build with these parts, but I don't really know what that means. We're going to go piece by piece, part by part, and discuss each and every component, why it's important, what you need it for, my recommendations, brand recommendations. We're going to be using a website called PC Part Picker that's going to show us the compatibility and the overall price and also find us the best deals. We're going to be looking at the power requirements of all of our components so we can buy a power supply that fits the needs of the build. And we're going to just go through kind of the idea of quality versus savings in relation to getting the best bang for your buck. Guys, don't let your motherboard be the reason why your entire computer build has stability problems. What's up, everybody? It's the Don with the Don Tech, and today we're going to be starting a new video series where I'm going to be shopping for a brand new computer for my own personal needs. I wanted to take you through the steps of what I go through and do, and what I try to find, how I research parts, and why and how I pick certain parts. This is planned on being an episode series, so this is going to be probably episode number 1 of 9 or 10, and we're going to go through all these different components of all the computers and parts that you need. For starters, if you want to follow along, I'm going to have a link to the part in the description down below the video from PC Part Picker that will help you find the parts, find the best deals, and make sure that anything that you're picking is personally compatible. On top of that, I'm going to go through my needs, what brands I recommend. We're going to be going through power requirements, compatibility, and future proofing. When I build computers, I typically want them to last at least for 10 years, usually just electronically. And you can only get that by buying good quality parts. We're going to go through the list of all the components and just go narrow it down one by one so we know exactly what parts to get for one of the most stable builds you can possibly get. PC Part Picker is a fantastic resource for not only finding parts, but finding the best deals. But me personally, when I'm looking for parts, I like to just start on Newegg. They have the greatest selection of computer parts. I've been using them for decades, ever since my first build, many years ago. And they're just absolutely fantastic. So I always start here looking for these particular parts. Today, we're going to be going for a motherboard. So when it comes to your motherboard, that is going to be the cornerstone, the absolute insanely robust piece of hardware that you need to have on the computer for stability, as it controls every single thing that's plugged into it. You know, your RAM, graphics card, SSD, CPU, Wi-Fi, any other power phases, all those sort of things are all controlled by the motherboard itself. If you don't have a good foundation, it's going to set you up for failure in the long run. So definitely make sure you do your research and get a good quality board. Unfortunately, motherboards have gone up in price a lot. It's absolutely absurd. For reference, my previous build that I did, which was in 2016, that motherboard was $299. I've done a video about it, and we'll have that linked as well and probably popping up somewhere if that happens. And it was a fantastic, beautiful board. The only reason I'm upgrading my system entirely is because I just need newer things for what I'm doing. More streaming, more output, more editing, all those sort of things. I want to just have no more bottlenecks. And I'm starting to see the CPU bottleneck just a little bit. When coming through and doing research on a motherboard, you just go through components and storage, motherboard, and I know that I'm sticking with Intel. So since I know I'm going to be going through and doing that, it kind of sets the stage for what we were looking for. I am ASUS proud, and I have not used any other boards for my personal systems, and I have had 0 computers have any failures that I've personally built. And I've always used ASUS boards for myself, family, personally, professionally, you name it. So we're sticking with ASUS themselves. Sold by Newegg, I like to see that, so that way you know you're getting something that's pretty decent. Go back to ASUS themselves. And then the socket that we're going for is also important, because we're going to be going for this LGA 1851 socket. That's the newest standard from Intel that's probably only going to last for this gen of processors, so it's a little unfortunate, but that's what we're going for this particular video. And we've narrowed it down a lot to 1 page of boards, and it's really not all that bad. Let me just make sure that there's nothing here. Open box, I don't want any of those. If you want to find an open box for something for yourself, that's perfectly fine, but my stuff here, I want it to all be like brand spanking condition. I want it to be brand new. I don't buy any open box, anything. That narrows down the boards quite a bit. Furthermore, looking through, you find boards that are anywhere from $100, and let's go ahead and search by, how do we sort by lowest price? $122, and to the highest price going up to $963. And while there's a big price difference between the $100 board and the $900 board, you kind of might be wondering, all right, well, why don't we just get the cheaper board? Or why don't we just go for the most expensive board if money is not an option? There's a sweet middle ground for these boards, and you can just kind of see some of the descriptions here of what it comes with. This is an extreme based. This is an eATX, which I guess we should talk about motherboards. They come in 3 standard sizes and like 4 to 5 different sizes entirely. You have ATX, which is the most standard size, MATX, which is micro ATX, which is the board that's going to be smaller, usually just cut lengthwise. And then you have ITX, micro ITX boards. And those are the really, really small ones. I would not recommend getting a micro ITX. You just kind of shoot yourself in the foot. There's no point in it, especially if you're going to be building a small system. You don't want that because you're just going to be creating more heat and having more problems. So I like to go with just a standard ATX. This one up here is an eATX. If you get an eATX, that stands for extended ATX, so it's wider of a board. You're going to want to make sure you get a case that would support that, but that's in a future video. The 24 plus 2 plus 1 plus 2 stages, that's going to be pretty much for the power that this can give to the other components that are on it. And it's going to be really important that you get something that's not just the standard phase. And that's where some of these, just these top 2 right here, you can see 22 plus or 24 plus 2 and then 22 plus 2, and there's different stages. So you might be asking yourself, well, why don't we just go for something right in the middle, right? $450, $300. What's wrong with any of those boards? Well, as we come through and kind of see some of these, the Asus TUF gaming boards used to be some of the most rock solid boards you could get on the consumer grade for a very inexpensive price. They used to offer a 5-year warranty and were very, very solid. Asus has had some quality slips with that particular side, so I would not recommend the TUF gaming anymore. I go with either the ROG Strix or with the, the Maximus. My previous one was a Maximus Hero. Love that board. And this one, I've been looking through some of the research on these boards, and we're probably going to be sticking with, it was between the Creator one, because this will be Creator, or this one right here, the Z890E Gaming Wi-Fi. Another really important part is that if you need Wi-Fi, make sure it comes with Wi-Fi. There are some boards that have it integrated. Most of these do. And then there are going to be some boards that do not have it integrated, which is probably going to be the lower cost boards. The Prime series boards as well are fantastic entry-level boards. If we just compare real quick the power phases, this has, 12, that's a TUF gaming. This one has 10 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1. And then the one that I'm thinking about up here, this Strix E, has 18 plus 2 plus 1 plus 2. So already significantly more. And then if we go up here, 24, so you get even more. I have had a lot of these higher end boards come defective, either from failed installation from a customer, or just it's got way too many things going on with it, way too many parts of failure, and it just gives you issues. So the most expensive thing isn't always the best, but the least expensive thing is usually always the worst. Now, the nice thing about all of these boards is they all are going to be supporting DDR5 and the latest Wi-Fi 7 standard. I don't connect Wi-Fi, so that doesn't really mean too much to me. I think these are going to have 5 gig or 2.5 gig Ethernet, which is fine. I'm not even at a gig yet, so it still doesn't matter. And I don't do a lot of LAN transfers itself, so that won't be a big deal. Most of the time, you're just going for quality, reliability, and then some features. So looking at these boards, I mean, this one right here, the Strix Z890E Gaming Wi-Fi seems to be the best bet. The one below it, the Z890A Gaming Wi-Fi, is also seemingly pretty good. This has a few less on the power. It's got 16 plus 2. This one has 18 plus 2. And for the $110 extra, it can be worth it. But I would say that these two boards, this one right here, we do the compare and the compare. These two would be your best bet. The one right in between it, that's that's the micro ITX. You can see how much smaller that one is. Very, very small. Would not recommend it. Let's go ahead and just compare these two products here and see what we've got. We do not need any recommendations. No, thank you. And generally, this will give a good lay of the land of what the differences are between these particular systems. DDR5, how much RAM they can take, the different speeds. All those should be very vanilla and pretty similar. For some reason, this one on the left supports higher overclocked memory than the one on the right, but that's really kind of about it. This has a few more M.2 slots, which isn't really too big of a deal. The highlights aren't really the differences. I don't know what the highlights are. It's got a higher LAN speed, which again isn't a big deal. Same Bluetooth standards. So it's really just going to be the power that it comes with, the overclocking ability that it has, and some of the extra features that it might include with like maybe some RGB elements or something like that. So what I'm going to end up doing is actually grabbing this board right here. This is going to be the board that we're going to pick for this system, and it's going to be absolutely rock solid. Again, this board is meant to last me for at least 8 to 10 years. So I want something that's going to last. And as I always say, with computers and electronics. If you build them correctly, use high quality parts, and protect them electrically, they will last, period. Every upgrade I've done with my computers is because I've wanted to, not because I've been forced to. And then usually I can turn around and sell my computer for a good chunk of money to make up for the cost of what I'm buying. So with that in mind, we go over to the PC Parts Picker website, and we go to the motherboard. We're going to choose a motherboard. You can kind of select some things and maybe do the same sort of organization stuff here. I don't really care to do that. I'm just going to search for 890E gaming Wi-Fi. So that's the one that we're going to be going for, is the Strix Z890E. Now, if you check that out right there, we're going to add this to the parts list. And with the board selected, the next choice is going to be going for the processor. Did you know that your processor is more than just clock speeds? In the previous episode, we picked a motherboard, and we've gotten that linked on PC Part Picker. As that updates, this should be the Dontech, or whatever this list will be here. I will make sure that that is in the description of the videos themselves. We're going to go through and find every single component, match them all together, make sure they've got good compatibility, see the wattage, and build an awesome system afterwards. And since we've picked this Asus ROG Strix Z890E gaming Wi-Fi motherboard, we're going to need an Intel processor to go with it. So we go to our handy dandy website, newegg.com, and we're just going to go ahead and search through components and storage, CPU/processor, and we're going to go to, let's see, desktop CPU processor. We already know that we can get rid of almost more than half of the options here. We're going to stick with Intel, hit apply, shop by Newegg. Always, don't buy from third party. You don't get a warranty and you don't know if it's going to be actually decent or if it's going to be actually OEM and brand new. And then our socket is going to be the 1851, but we also know that this is going to be the Core Ultra. So we're just going to stick with that Core Ultra 9 there. Now, there's not much of a difference between the Core Ultra 9 and the previous 14th gen situation. This computer actually to my left that might not be in frame, that is wall mounted, check the video on that one, has a 13th gen i7. Fantastic rock solid CPU. I'm so pleased with that performance. It shreds through everything I'm doing. So I was a little disappointed that Intel has kind of taken a slower, essence of how their processors are going, but it's just you reach the power peak, you reach a ceiling at some point. So these seem like fantastic processors though, from what I've seen so far. And I'm very excited to get my hands on one and kind of work on it. And looking at these, if I said SSD, excuse me, I meant CPU. They say free SSD right there. So it's like I'm drawn to that. So we've got a couple of different options here with, your typical, naming convention has been changed a little bit. They had i3, i5, and i7s, and now they have the Ultra 5, Ultra 7, and Ultra 9. I think they got rid of they got the 5, 7, and 9. They kind of got rid of that lower end i3 series, which is, fine. But I mean, if we look at the prices, it's probably going to be a little sad on that sense. So if we go like lowest price, you cannot buy a processor for less than $250. It's not a terrible price, but it's definitely one of those things that, you used to be able to get a $50, $60, $100 processor for these budget builds, but budget builds are almost completely going away. So when I'm shopping for the processors, I like to really focus on a couple of different things. Let's do featured items here. I like to mainly focus on my personal needs, which is going to be video gaming, video editing, streaming, recording, all those sort of things. It's going to be a multi-use, multi-purpose PC, so I need to make sure that I've got enough cores, clock speed, and pretty much oomph to this processor to get me everywhere I need to go. The power of the system is also very important. We don't want to go too high where we have these insane power requirements where the system's going to be running too hot, but we don't want to go too low where we might run into some throttling with everything we're going to be doing. In regards to compatibility, I normally like to buy components that you can maybe use for multi-generations or multi-systems, but a lot of these processors are kind of sticking with like one generation to one socket and then wanting to change all these socket types. It's annoying, but most of my builds last anywhere from 8 to 10 years, and then I purposely choose to upgrade them. So the socket type and this socket 1851 being available only for this particular generation shouldn't really be too bad for me. And then that goes into future-proofing where, again, this system will last for a good while. My previous system, which is an i7 8700K, which I upgraded to an i7 9700K because I got one for free from a friend, it's one of those things that was a 8-core system, I think, and these are coming up with a 8P plus 16E sort of a thing, 20 to 24 sort of cores, and this should be much better for the future. And next time I need to upgrade the computer in another 8 to 10 years, who knows what we'll have? We'll kind of see in 8 to 10 years from now. Subscribe. So when it comes to buying a processor, they have, with Intel, a few variants. They have the K series, which is unlocked, and they have the KF series. KF simply means that there is no dedicated graphics on the actual processor. I don't like that because that means that if you build a computer and you plug in the display to your graphics card, you turn it on and you don't get any post or you don't get any video, you can't rule out if the graphics card is a problem. Because normally what you could do is you pull the graphics card out and you plug it into the motherboard, the display, to see if you can get post. If you can, okay, fantastic, you know where the problem is. Or if, let's say, you were using your computer for a couple of years, turn it on, one day it doesn't show any video, you're like, oh shoot, did my graphics card die? You can't test it without another graphics card. So if you buy the KF variant, that's a trap you can get into. And as you can see here, that's a $2 savings. It's not worth it at all for that oddly specific but relatively important loophole that you could have, or problem that you could have. So I always recommend sticking with the actual K variant. If they have a non-K to not even overclock, it doesn't really matter. I have not done any overclocking, and overclocking hasn't been necessary to do. Gosh, since I got my AMD system back in 2006, like quite literally. It was cool back in the day, but now these systems just bleed through everything. You don't need any additional overclocking. I am curious here, if we go and compare that one with this one specifically, that Core 9 Ultra and then the other Core 9. Let's get rid of that board from last time. And let's go ahead and go through and we're going to compare that one as well. The i7 Core 7s are usually pretty fantastic in everything that you would need to do, and they fit the bill for almost everything. The i5s are also so powerful. These two right here, I'm just curious about. Okay, so this is the Core Ultra. This is the unlocked version. So the only difference here for $10 is it's not unlocked. And primarily what you can see is you have a 14 core, a 20 core, and a 24 core processor for a difference of 320, 372, and 600. Going through it and everything, I mean, it's kind of like when you go to a fast food restaurant and you can buy a small for $1, a medium for $1.50, or a large for $1.60. And it's like, well, why don't I just get the large for $1.60? It's kind of like that here. It's like, well, why, spend the extra $60 and get, that's actually extra $50 and get, 6 more cores. That's kind of worth it. So in this situation, looking at everything we're planning, we don't want to create as much heat as we would with the Core 9 series. We don't need the 24 cores, and getting the Ultra 7 probably would be a perfect deal for everything that we would need to do. 20 cores, 20 threads. This says 14, 14, 24, 24. And I've worked on a couple of systems that have the i9 and the Core Ultra 9 series processors in them. And the biggest issue with those is they just run so much hotter than what they should be. And since they generate so much more heat, that can cause the entire case to heat up more, which can cause premature damage to the components if they are just running at a higher than necessary temperature 24/7. And when you start at a processor that's a little bit lower in temp, you have a higher threshold before you start to have any problems. My other system is running at about 33 degrees Celsius on idle, but this one runs about maybe 40 to 50 degrees Celsius on idle, maybe like 42 degrees Celsius on idle. It's really not that bad, but I like to see it lower when it's just sitting there doing nothing. They all have a very similar thermal watt power design. The max turbo for the wattage on the i5 is going to be the least, the Core Ultra 5 at 159 watts, and then these are probably very similar in their abilities and how much heat they're going to kind of generally make. They all have the same amount of, the PCI Express lanes. They've got the same revision. They got the same integrated graphics, same RAM, dual channel memory, and same speeds. I mean, it's interesting that the i7 right in the middle has more support for speeds. I would doubt if both of the Ultra 5 and Ultra 9 are limited to DDR5 6400. That would be really weird. That's probably just an issue on Newegg itself. But through looking at all these in the middle of the road, I want to have something that's going to last me a long time, be reliable, be stable, and that's going to be this Intel i7, the Core Ultra 7 processor. So we take this information, we go back over to our PC Parts Picker tab, and we're going to go to choose a CPU. And that's going to show up right at the top here. So we know it was the Core Ultra 7 265K. Just going to add that, and already, what? Oh, okay. That is such a terrible warning. These parts have potential issues or compatibility. See the details below. And you go down to the details and they say, warning, the Core Ultra 7 265K does not include a stock CPU cooler. Yeah, nothing really includes a stock CPU cooler anymore. And then we see our estimated wattage at 320. That's going to be the max theoretical throughput. That's not how much it's just going to be to use the system itself. The case you pick can make or break your entire computer build. We know that we're going to eventually add a all-in-one liquid cooler to this unit to help cool the entire thing. We're not doing custom loop. And then we're going to just have to make sure that we have a nice case to put it within. So back on Newegg, we just sort through and try to find some nice, cases themselves. A lot of times you have a couple of choices when it comes to cases, and it's going to be a matter of, okay, what do I want it to look like? Do I want RGB or not RGB? Do I want tempered glass? Do I want just complete flat side panels? Do I want a certain color? Do I want like this fractal one, that like kind of like brown aesthetic to it? Is it going to be small enough or big enough to fit on my case? Do I want to wall mount it like the Lian Li 011DX? Check out that video. Or do I want it to just be something that sits out of the way and nobody looks at it? So you have a couple of those choices. And when I've done builds with cases, I always generally rate them as, is this a good case to build in, and what I want to build in that case again? More often than not, the Corsair cases end up being a yes, and a lot of these other cases end up being an astounding no, I don't want that again. So as always, I like to sort by sold by Newegg, and if you have an idea of what your case is going to be and what you want it to look like, you can kind of do your own personal searching through here. There's not really any wrong answers when it comes to a case. There's just some that, I mean, there can be some wrong answers, but there's some that are more well built out than others. Cases themselves really benefit from having a lot more airflow, and long gone are the days of having airflow and fans on the side chassis. Now we just have tempered glass. We used to have fans on those cases back in the day. It was kind of cool. But now you have usually tempered glass on the front, or 3 fans in the front, 3 fans on the rear side, 1 or 2 fans on the rear and the back, and then some fans on the bottom. I definitely recommend cases that have a fan configuration that allows for fans on the bottom, because that can intake air in through the bottom and push it onto the graphics card and then exhaust it out of the top. It's really a nice thing to see, because otherwise they just kind of heat up and everything in the bottom. It does require some configuration changes and usually a bigger case to put the power supply somewhere else, but that's a willing, to have trade-off. Phanteks makes excellent cases. NZXT makes some pretty good cases. Corsair makes fantastic cases, and Lian Li also makes some fantastic cases. We're just going to pick one out of the blue here. I've done several builds in this Corsair 5000D. This is the airflow. They have the RGB. They've got the RGB, and they've got the RGB. The main difference you can see here, this one has glass on the front and comes with 3 fans. This one might not come with any fans or any RGB and just has the mesh on the front. But we just want to kind of look through and talk about some of the features of the cases first to kind of give an overview and know what we're looking for. So this case, it will show you the millimeter of the radiator that you can fit in it. And that's where, depending on what radiator you're going to pick, really will determine the case you can get overall. Because you want to have a case that can fit all of your fans and all your cooling components. So we're going to be getting a 360 millimeter all-in-one. That's a spoiler for video number like 7 or something. And we know that we're going to put it on the top. So we already kind of know where that's going to go. And with this particular system, this case here would fit those needs, because it can do the 360 on the top, on the side, maybe in the front as well. Yeah, it would be able to do the on the front as well. It's got the GROM, it's got all the needs and everything. It's quite a nice, simplistic, easy enough case to build with. They've got easy cable routing, and you're just going to have a lot of cables. So it's just something you're going to have to deal with. Look at some people that have done some builds here. That's kind of what it would look like with this, amount of fans. It's definitely interesting because it doesn't have any cables. It just has the actual build, but I'm not rating anything here. When it comes to cases, there's these types right here, right? And there's a lot of them. And the primary ones you want to stick with are going to be ATX full tower, ATX mid tower. Micro ATX, mini ITX, mini tower, eATX cases, all those sort of things, small form factor, are not necessary for most builds. So usually it's just going to be full tower and mid tower, because that's going to give you the biggest range of cases. And these other ones are a little bit more specialized. So we don't really want to focus on those. We want to go for the ones that we know will fit our current components. And I know that once Lian Li started with the case that I have built on my wall, the 011DX, this one right here, this sort of case, this is actually the mini version, I think. But when they came out with this case back several years ago, it took the market by storm. People loved it. That sleek system is really, really nice looking. And this has everything that I would say that you would want. It's got 3 fans on the rear, 3 fans on the bottom, 3 fans on the top, 6 on the top actually, and then 1 in the side. Fantastic layout. Definitely would be a nice runner-up. Now, one of my friends, Smart Alec from Smart Alec Plays, he might have a link in the description if I feel so humble to do so. He told me about this Phanteks case. And I was like, what's that case? I've never heard of it. I looked it up. The Phanteks NV7. They have the NV5, which is smaller. Don't recommend. NV7, which is a mid-range, like full tower and really good. And then they have the NV9, which is like big, big, big. I actually have the NV7, and I'm working on a video on my build experience with that particular system, and it is wonderful. It was a pain in the neck to build with in general, but it's a beautiful, beautiful build. Has 4 fans, 4 120mm fans that can fit on the side there, 3 120s on the bottom, 3 120s on the top, and 2 120s in the rear. Beautiful. You can get it, as you can see in some of these videos, to look really, really nice. Granted, those are not the right one. So this is the NV5 because it has this little shroud, and this is the NV7. Yeah, NV7. The NV9 can support 140s instead of 120s, so maybe this is the NV... No, this is probably still the NV7. This case also, if they demonstrate it, has the ability to completely hide all of your cables in the back. It has this metal piece here that closes over the back of the case. It's a big case though, but if I have some pictures of it, remind myself to put them in here so you can see what my current build looks like, not the one I'm building. And that's what makes me want to use this case again. And that's what we're going to end up doing overall. But I still want to discuss some important avenues of cases and why they'd be really important to use. Certain cases and not others. You have a case called the Height case. This became very popularized in 2020 when this company just kind of came out of nowhere and started to make some of these cases. They're very heavily advertised from YouTubers, tech tubers, all that sort of stuff. As he's like, oh, look at these cool cases. No, they're not. Do not fall into the trap of buying this case. And there's one very, very simple reason why you don't want to buy this case. There's more than one reason, but there's one simple reason. And just look at this real quick. Does anything stand out to you? Might not. Look at this one, right? Look at this, that one. Let's see, look at this one. This is a great representation of why you don't want this case. On the left here, these are not full-size PCI Express slots. None of them are. That means that you cannot use your Elgato capture card. You can't use a graphics card unless you use their or other proprietary PCI Express riser cable. I do not like riser cables. Those are another point of failure, and the only times I've ended up using a riser cable, and I've talked about it before, they've caused blue screens and instability with my graphics driver. Doesn't mean they're all like that. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. Obviously, there's thousands upon thousands of people that do not have that issue, but with my personal experience, it is not worth that point of failure. Does it look cool? Yes, but that's all you can use in this case, and that's terrible. I mean, the back, yada yada, cooling and everything, it looks cool, looks great. It does have the ability for the fans on the bottom, but this design as well, this curvature, does not help anything. There's gaps here where air can kind of seep through. It's a tangent for another day, but do not fall into the hype of the Height case, because that exact problem is what you're going to be dealing with, is that you just can only use a riser cable card. And that is a terrible, terrible design flaw. I think I got through everything I wanted to with cases. We're going to search the Phanteks NV7 here. We have it in black. We're going to add that to our particular system. It was not $291. Does this place not? It looks like Newegg, doesn't it? Oh, out of stock. Okay, that's why. Anyway, that is not the price of this. I got this on sale like a year ago for like $150 or something like that. It was really, really good. $300 is not worth that case. So you want to have good price value of the case. Any case less than $200 is a pretty good case. There's no reason to really spend much more above and beyond that. My Leon Lee case was like $180. I can't think of any cases that would come with that much more that's worth it, unless you want these really intense RGB features through Corsair or something. But even still, you can kind of buy those things on your own after the fact. You don't really save a ton of money by getting it with it, and just kind of pigeonholes you into having to use those particular components. I like using Leon Lee fans. That'll be demonstrated in the video. Don't spend more than you need to, but also don't go cheap and get a $50 case, unless it's the Corsair 4000D case, which I did review in the channel down below, and it's been quite a nice case itself, but it's definitely got some limitations on the airflow. So if you're building as powerful as I'm building, get a big full tower case so it'll fit all your components and you'll have plenty of cooling and not have to worry about it. It's unfortunate that each fan is anywhere from 15 to 30 or $40, and you got to get like 4 to 9 fans, but that's just the cost of computer building nowadays. Anybody with less than 32 gigs of RAM is committing a crime. We know that this entire system can have a max of 192 gigs of RAM, and it focuses dual channel compatibility. And while this won't be a complete deep dive into RAM, because that's a whole different situation, this is just going to kind of give some high points, some low points, what you're going to want to look for, why things are important, and why you want to have at least 32 gigs of RAM or more. Back on Newegg, we go to the components and storage. We're going to go for memory. We're going to go for desktop memory because we're building a desktop. Short, sweet, and simple. The best RAM choices are 2. Corsair Dominator / Vengeance RGB RAM, not the LPX, not the low profile, not that stuff. It's either exactly what you see right here, this Corsair Vengeance or the Dominator, and the G.Skill Trident Z only. Those are the 2 brands, but 3 choices you have in RAM, period. I know this website's going to show a ton of other type of RAM. No, don't even focus on it. Does not matter. The best of the best is G.Skill Trident Z and the Corsair Dominator, and then below that would be the Corsair Vengeance. The Vengeance LPX, no, not necessary. Don't do that. So with this RAM, we know we're going to be sticking with the speed of DDR5. We're going to just go ahead and go for that. And then you got to kind of think, how much RAM do I need overall? I'm going to select Corsair and I'm going to select G.Skill because everything else just gets out of here. They will fail and give you problems. But now with only G.Skill and Corsair being selected, we can kind of figure out, okay, how much RAM do we want? I already said that 32 gigs or less is committing a crime, so we don't want to commit a crime. We want to have something that's going to be future-proofed as well as on top of being able to give us good speed. So a lot of times when you shop for RAM, you'll just see there's so many different types. There's 13 pages of RAM just for DDR5 and all these configurations. That's a lot of pages of RAM just for those 2 brands. It's like, what in the world? So when you're looking through these things, maybe we can limit it down a little bit more because we don't want to have certain types. Do we sort it by Newegg only? Sold by Newegg. That's the other thing you want to do. That drops us down to 13 pages. Awesome. My 2016 build featured 32 gigs of RAM. My editing build had 64 gigs of RAM, and I have had 0 problems with any memory allocation in every single thing that I do. I'm a big proponent of having more RAM than necessary because your computer will only use as much RAM as it needs. And for example, right now on this system, as I'm streaming, not streaming, but recording and working on this entire process with my tabs open and the streaming software, all that sort of stuff, I'm using only 9.5 or 15% of my 64 gigs of RAM. So would you say the rest of that RAM is overkill? Why don't I just go down to 16 gigs? It's a pitfall that a lot of people fall into, and I hear it all the time. Oh, you don't need that much RAM. You don't need that much RAM. You just don't. It's overkill. Don't buy that much RAM. No, those opinions are wrong. You need a lot of RAM, and then you want to make sure that you're future-proofed and that you're not going to have any bottlenecks with that. With this next build, we can max out at 192 gigs of RAM. That's really cool. But I will admit, that is overkill. But you want to know what's not going to be overkill? 96 gigs of RAM. So we know we're going to be going with 96 gigs of RAM, 2 48 gig sticks, because you really have the choices. Do I want to go with another 64 gig build? Do I want to go with a 128 gig build? Or do I want to go with a happy medium of 96 gigs? And 96 gigs seems pretty sweet. So with all that out of the way, we have the brands, we have the type, we can kind of sort through a little bit more. You might see something that's like, okay, what's the CAS latency and what's the speed and the timings? And what you generally want to find is RAM that has good speed, which is going to be this number right here, the 5200. You want to have good speed and then good latency. Latency is going to be the response time. The lower the timing numbers, the faster that the RAM can communicate essentially. And then the higher this number, this 5200, the more bandwidth and the more capacity it has to handle all the tasks you're throwing at it. So lower CAS, faster it can do it, higher bandwidth of this higher number, the higher speed, the more that you can essentially do at once. A happy medium, and I found the RAM that I wanted to find, is kind of like right here. There's like G.Skill Trident Z Royal, CAS latency of 32 with timings 32, 39, 39, and 6400 speed. This is considered overclocked, so you would have to go into the BIOS and set the XMP settings to a certain profile to achieve that speed. But when we're looking through this RAM, you can kind of see like this one right below it as well. Same sort of timings, 32, 39, 39, 102. This one is probably about the same speed and everything. This is probably just the Royal Z series, which is a premium for kind of no reason, except it looks fancier. And then this is just the regular Trident Z RGB series. And then the gold is even the fancier with a little bit lower timings here as well, 28, 36, 36. But this speed right here, the bandwidth is 6,000. There's a very happy medium. You don't want to get such low speed that your timings are a lot lower, but you also don't want to get such high speed that your timings are incredibly high. There are some things out there that show flowcharts and other people might have even shown all the data of like, okay, this is the exact type of RAM that you want to show. That's not what this video is going to have because this is just kind of based off of older knowledge of like what I remember it being. And looking through this, I found a good set of RAM that is going to fit the build pretty much perfectly. And it's this G.Skill kit right here. We're going to go and compare it, and it has the good cast latency of 32, that DDR5 6400, which is really nice. The price is also pretty good, at $290 for 96 gigs of RAM. That's really, really nice. And we look up here at this Corsair Vengeance series. This has a cast latency of 4, but has more megahertz on the speed for the RAM itself, but it's more money. So it makes you wonder, where you at here? I think you'd rather have this one down here with the 6400 instead of the 7000 with that lower cast latency, because that's a significant cast latency of 32 to 40. But let's compare that one right there. I would like to see some Dominator RAM if we could. Other things to keep in mind is going to be the voltage that the RAM is going to be running at to achieve those speeds. The higher voltage, the more temperature and the more heat it will produce, but it's also not really too much of a, really big ender break deal, because the speed kind of comes with it, and a lot of the RAM has enough heat spreaders on it to really circumvent and let that be a little bit, running a little bit cooler. We're also buying RAM in a dual channel kit. When you're buying RAM, you want to buy all the RAM that you want at once. Gone are the days of being able to I'll just buy, I'll buy 16 gigs and I'll upgrade it to 32 gigs later. Those days are gone, because you cannot mix and match this RAM anymore. It has to be from the same exact, pretty much, packaging in order to be guaranteed to work correctly, no matter what brand. Even if you buy the exact same model number, the exact same SKU, everything, there's no guarantees that they're going to be compatible. So you have to buy the amount of RAM that you want to use now, or if you want to upgrade in the future, you buy cheap 16 gigs now, and then in the future you buy brand new 92 gigs of RAM. But buying 16 with the hopes to buy another 16 later to go to 32 just does not work. All right, so we have 4 kits of RAM that we're looking through here. We have the Corsair Vengeance, which is these two right here, the non-RGB and the RGB. This should not be the LPX style, so I think I can recommend it. The Dominator all the way to the right, and then the G.Skill Trident Z that is in my top running up for the memory that I actually want. So we just compare some of these real quick. Right off the bat, this G.Skill Trident Z is the lowest cost. That's kind of nice. The biggest thing that you can see between the speeds here is the Dominator is 6600 for the frequency. This is 6000, 6000, and then 6400. So they're kind of this one's kind of in the middle, but the timings is really where it makes a difference. So these are higher timings at 32, 39, 39, 102, but then we got 30, 36, 36, 76. That's across the board, except these are a little bit higher at 39, 39, 76. So you'd kind of think, okay, what is right here, these two numbers, these two pieces of RAM, this is really the most important part. And this is just RGB, so it's 20 extra bucks for the fact of it having RGB, which is just kind of whatever. So the frequency being 400 higher, is that worth the timings being a little bit less? Now, I'm not sure. This is a pretty big discrepancy, 102 to 76, and I honestly don't know. So let's do a new tab here. Okay, well, I didn't really get a lot of information as to how big of a difference that does make, but generally, looking through these two things of RAM, it's going to be between these first 2 bits of RAM here. When we look up at the voltage, that's where these both have an extra oomph in voltage at running at 0.4 instead of 0.35. So that will increase a little bit of heat, and it will give you a little bit more maybe overhead in what it can actually do. But you might also be able to achieve that in overclocking with the G.Skill memory. So the past several builds, I've done a mixture, and this one included, has Trident Z or Corsair Vengeance, but to be able to save as well this much money right here for the extra latency but lower speeds, slower timings, I guess, the higher frequency, slower timings, I would say that the G.Skill is going to be the one that we're going to end up picking. I have not had any issues. I've had zero, nil issues with Trident Z RAM, and I think if you pick that for your system as well, you would have 0 problems. And we'll find out when this build is done if I made the right choice. So we go here, we're going to go ahead and go to the memory itself. Choose memory, add that in. So now we have it right there. The system so far is going to have a 20-core processor, a very stable ASUS-based motherboard, 96 gigs of DDR5 RAM, and a beautiful Phanteks NV7 case. What would you say if I told you that for SSDs, smaller is better? And we take ourselves on over to the handy dandy Newegg components and storage, SSD. We're going to be focusing on the boot media, which is what Windows is going to be booting into. You want that to be SSD, solid state drive storage only. Mechanical drives should only be there, not even for games anymore, but for multimedia long-term storage. That's pretty much it. You want SSDs for every single thing else that you can get. We're going for an internal SSD, and then in my professional and personal life, I've only used Samsung SSDs. I have a history of using and selling and providing thousands of these SSDs with a failure rate of 0. That's what we're sticking with today. It makes it very easy. Corsair makes a pretty distant second SSD. I would avoid Western Digital. I would avoid Kingston. I would avoid like T-Force, absolutely, Team Group, and any of those, definitely I would avoid those 100%. You know, Silicon Power, oh my gosh, just avoid. It's going to fail, it's going to have memory issues, and you're going to just have problems, and it's just not worth it. The reason I like to stick with Samsung is because they offer a 5-year warranty. They've never failed on me, and their speeds are blisteringly fast. Most of my builds right now have about a 2 terabyte based SSD, so I kind of think, what am I going to be doing in the future with this particular computer? I know I'm going to be streaming / recording like I am now. I know we're going to be editing. I know we're going to be editing a lot of 4K videos, and we're going to need a lot of storage space. It's going to be able to eat through that stuff fast. I know that I want to have the ability to expand and put more stuff on the computer. I know I'm going to be gaming, and I don't want to have to worry about removing games when, you know, I need to install the next best game. So with all that information in mind, I know that I also want it to last the life of the computer, and that's going to be the Samsung-based drives. If we go ahead and just do our handy dandy little section here where we sold by Newegg being selected, brand being Samsung, and apply, cuts us down to 1 page of drives. You've got a couple of different options, and it's really just going to be the 990 and 990. So you have 2 different types, 2 different styles of drives. You have the NVMe style drive. They also provide much faster read and write speeds, as you can see right here. Just these, can I get one? Just these 2 right here, what we're going to be looking at, this 990 EVO and this 870 EVO. Both fantastic drives. This one speeds up to 5,000, and this one's going to be limited by the SATA bus, which is going to be like 550 megs. Yeah, see, so like 560. That's limited by the SATA bus. The NVMe drives are only limited by the PCI Express bus, pretty much, which now is at version 5, but Samsung's drives are on the version 4. They are going to be coming out with new SSDs, and by the time this video comes out, maybe we'll already be at that point, so a little irrelevant, but the price for those new things is so expensive, I wouldn't be looking at it anyway. So our main boot drive is going to be an NVMe-based SSD. So we look and we compare the NVMEs. We have the 990 EVO and the 990 Pro. So the 990 Pro has higher read speeds of 7,450, and the lower read speeds on the 990 EVO of 5,000. And then you got to look at the pricing differences as well. So let's see here. For example, this 2 terabyte NVMe is $170, and then this 2 terabyte 990 is $130. So $40 difference, but for that additional read speeds, might be worth it. All of these should have a 5-year warranty, but since I know what I'm going to be sticking with, we're just going to select 4 terabyte capacity, because I want to get an NVMe that's going to be 4 terabytes in size. You know, these 2 right here, this EVO Plus actually having 7,250 versus 7,450 for the much lower price. If I didn't already have one of these Pros in like my possession because I got it on Black Friday sale, I would be definitely going for this one. So for the sake of this entire argument, we're going to go and select the exact part I'm picking, which is going to be this 990 Pro 4 terabyte. All right, so we have a quick compare of these 2. Now, neither of these come with heatsinks. Most motherboards, including the motherboard that we're getting, does have a heatsink on it, and that heatsink will allow the drive to cool because they're going to run pretty hot without that. So make sure if you're getting a nice board, it has that ability to do a heatsink with it. Otherwise, you have to buy a SSD with the heatsink already pre-installed. Go here to the storage. We're going to add the 990 Pro, 4 terabytes in size. Oh, and this will even show you the price per gigabyte. That's kind of cool. But because this is the one I have and it's going in the build, I'm being exact precise to what we've got. That's one we're going to add to this particular build. Seagate hard drives. I have had this type of drive right here, this enterprise grade drive. I've got a 12 terabyte drive, I think. I bought it a couple of years ago, and it's wonderful. It's beautiful. So if I were to add an additional mechanical drive that I need for large storage up to 24 terabytes, I would go for the Samsung EXOS. You just want to make sure that is going to be the SATA 6. It's not going to be the SCSI type, which I don't even see that listed here, so that's nice. If you need to have storage, buy something like this so you can have the additional storage to offload other media files that you're not using. I am so far away from filling up my 10 terabyte drive, probably not even halfway yet, so I've got plenty of room to grow, but I would eventually get probably a larger drive like this, 24 terabytes. why not? So you get those 2 base drives, you should not have any issues with anything that you want to store. And a lot of times you might not even need more than the 4 terabyte, or if you want to add an additional auxiliary SSD, stick again to the Samsung-based 870 EVO SSDs. Do not get the QVO. The QVOs will fail a little bit easier, and they don't have as long of a warranty for that exact purpose. Proper PC cooling is far more important than you might think. So when you're going to pick a cooler, you want to make sure you're going to be sticking with brand, reliability, compatibility, longevity, and then just knowing that it's going to fit all of your needs at the end of the day. We're going to be sticking with 360 millimeter, which is going to be 3 120 millimeter fans side by side. So 120 times 3 would be 360. Nice, easy math. It's fantastic. With that in mind, we know that the NV7 can fit that configuration either on the side of the case or on the top of the case. We're going to be sticking with it, putting it on the top of the case in this particular build. Configuration doesn't really matter that much. It's just kind of explaining the foreground of what's going to be happening for this particular part that we're going to be searching for. On Newegg, we just go ahead and go to the beautiful little section here where we're going to sort by fans and PC cooling. We're going to be going for water cooling and liquid cooling. We're going to sort by sold by Newegg. And very quickly, I have extensive knowledge when it comes to repairing computers and upgrading parts and components and everything there. The only pumps that have an extremely low failure rate that I've seen out of any of the other pumps that exist are Corsair. And for that reason, I'm going to be sticking with Corsair. I have had, you name it, the MSI, the Asus, Deepcool, Be Quiet, NZXT, if I didn't say those already, Leon Lee's, and any other manufacturer you can think of, they've come in with pump failures. Corsairs, I have had pump failures on those, but normally when Corsair pumps fail, it's going to be outside of the 5-year period, outside of their warranty. And they don't usually leak when they fail. They just stop working, which is nice. Because when they start to leak, even though the liquid itself is not a conductive material, it can just like stain, it can cause issues, and it's just not, fun to have to clean up your entire case. The only other all-in-one cooler I've used, and I've actually been using it for far greater than its life, has been from Fractal. Fractal had an absolutely wonderful cooler. Let's see if we can find it real quick. They don't make this type anymore, but Fractal had an all-in-one cooler. It was not RGB. If I got a picture of it, I can throw it up in post, and it looked absolutely beautiful. It had the ability to daisy chain the fans, and they all connected to the actual radiator itself. It cut down a lot on a lot of the cabling needs, which was wonderful. They don't make that anymore, and I don't have the same, the proper points to be able to use it. And I've been using this since 2018, so I'm beyond the 5-year period, but it still keeps that CPU at 33 degrees Celsius on idle and about 60 degrees under load. Cannot ask for anything more. I'm very sad to see that go, but it's kind of where we're at. Given that, the most reliable pump that exists on the market is from Corsair. I do not have the luxury of time of having parts fail. So when I build computers, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to worry about it. I want it to just do exactly what I need it to do. And that's why I'm going to stick with Corsair yet again. Their pumps are just tried and true and known for not having any issues. Challenge though, and the problem that I have with Corsair coolers at this point is the iCUE software that controls it. I despise the iCUE software. Every computer I've had to install it on, it gives issues, it faults out, it breaks, the lights don't work correctly, it has issues communicating with the devices that are connected, and it's just all the software. You reinstall the software and it works just fine. I don't like the software. And I scrolled just far enough to find the exact solution, and that's going to be right here. The Corsair Nautilus 360 RS liquid cooler, non-RGB. I don't mind having RGB lights. I like configuring them to different colors. Mainly white builds and everything are really, really nice. They look great as an aesthetic piece. And then you get some colors in there to kind of, throw some things around. It's really, really nice to have some RGB. So I'm not against RGB, but I'm against Corsair iCUE software. And this is a perfect happy medium. It has the same exact pump that they would sell on their higher end series, but it doesn't come with any of the RGB stuff. The fans are basic fans. The pump itself is just very basic. It's just black. This cooler itself as well also has the ability to daisy chain its fans together. They don't always really demonstrate the most important part of some of these components. They just talk about the coolest parts, no pun intended. But you want to actually see that, okay, these are all like daisy chained available. They don't even really like mention that. So all these fans can daisy chain and connect to each other on a single 4-pin PWM connector. That's really nice because it cuts down on the amount of fans you have. And then you have this fan right here, this lead that will connect to your motherboard. Boom, that's it. My plan is to take that Corsair, this cooler, and add on 3 more Lian Li fans that I already have in the case that will just pretty much bring the build together, and I don't have to worry about an additional software or additional cabling for the iCUE stuff. So this was actually a little bit simpler of a video to show because it cuts down on a lot of stuff that you get. RAM, you have choices. Other components, you have a lot of choices. Coolers, you either stick with an air cooler or you go with Corsair for the liquid cooling. I would not ever recommend any other liquid cooler because I've seen every single one fail and leak, and you just don't want that. So let's go ahead and go over here to the PC part picker, CPU cooler. We're going to do the, let's see, Corsair Nautilus. They do have an RGB version of the Nautilus, but we're just going for the RS, non-RGB. Not only does it keep the cost way down on that component, it keeps everything simple because no Corsair iCUE software necessary. And if you wanted to add additional fans to your case and you want to stick with some of the fans themselves, I'm trying to get enough fans together to be able to do a comparison video between Corsair's specialized fans that are on a lot of their components, you know, not the iCUE ones, but if we go back and we, you know, these Link fans, the fans look beautiful. This computer right here, for a whole different reason, has this exact H120 in it without the LCD actually, so it's not quite exact. And it has these fans. The fans look really, really nice. Those fans are very nice and they look nice, but you have to use iCUE software. I really like Lian Li because the software is very simple. The fans look very sleek and modernized and very nice without being too overpowering. They look like an addition, not the main attraction. And they cool and have wonderful static pressure and can move a lot of air. That is also important when it comes to this, but having any fans inside of your computer and filling up every single slot where the fans are at is much more important than not adding anything like that at all. So definitely recommend that you have all the fan slots that you can. So if we go with the Phanteks, you know, we go back, we're going to search up for the Phanteks. We're going to actually go back to the other case that we found. Haven't done this in any of the other videos. We're going to look at where all the case fans can go. So let's see here. What's the best? This just lets us count a little bit easier, right? So if this one, we can add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 fans. Let's get our handy dandy calculator out, which won't show up. We do 12 times 30. That's how much fans typically are on average. $30 a fan. You're looking at $360 just in fans. I'm sorry. How much is $360? That's the same price as the processor, more than the cooler, more than the board, more than the RAM, more than the SSD, and more than the case. What is happening with the computer components nowadays that they are so daggone expensive? So I have a lot of those fans already that we'll be using in this particular build. And when you buy the nice fans and they last for a long time, that's good. Back in the day, you were able to buy some Corsair ML fans, like magnetic levitation fans, 120s, 140s. They're maybe $15, $20 a fan. So still pretty expensive, but those were the premium, really, really good fans. Now, Lian Li and others have fans that are like $50 to $60 a fan. So don't skimp on the fans. You don't have to buy the pretty RGB things like that, though. Only do that if you can afford it or if you already have them. But otherwise, if you have to stick with just the basic fans for $30 a kit, you know, of 3 for fans, because you need to buy 12 or however many you need to buy, there's no wrong in doing that. You just want to make sure you have fans because that's much better than not having any fans. And that will allow all the airflow to go through the system. And in this particular case, as we're talking about, the side here that has these 4 fans will act as an intake. So they're going to be bringing cool air in from the outside into the case. These bottom fans will act as an intake as well. So they're going to be bringing in cool air from underneath and blowing it up through the top. These fans are going to be an exhaust on the rear. So that means they're going to be taking the hot air and taking it, exhausting it from the case. And then the top fans here will also be an exhaust fan. So as the cool air comes in and through the GPU, it will be heating up through, and then the top will be exhausting all of that hot air. And same with the cool air coming into the side. So you have really good static pressure in the case. You're going to have really good airflow in the case. It's going to keep all your components nice and cool. But if you get rid of that and you only have the fans on the top and the fans on the side, you don't have any way to bring cool air in. You can be exhausting the hot air, but you don't have any way to refresh and get new air in the system, and you can have a higher chance of your components burning out and giving you problems. Real talk. Do you plug your monitor into your graphics card or into your motherboard? and you love to see it. You love looking at the opportunities. You love to see what's out there. And, let's just go ahead and see what we got. The top highest one, out of stock, $2,000 to $3,000. Guys, what is happening with graphics cards? This is an absolute pitiful state of graphics cards. And I'm coming from a spot where I've got a wonderful 1080 Ti graphics card that has served me so well since this build in 2016. It was very affordable, like $750 for the top end card. Where are we at now? How is this even remotely acceptable in this field? I just, that's not what this video is about though. I don't want to turn it into a sad video. We're going to find a graphics card that will fit in the build. We'll just kind of go from there. The main graphics cards would be NVIDIA and AMD Radeon. Intel tries to get in there a little bit, but we're not really going to be looking at that. I don't know enough about them to say, oh, this is good or not. But I do know that any graphics card needs to have a lot of RAM, a lot of video RAM, just a lot. Just put RAM in the system. Should not be 2025 and we've got 10 gig cards, because I had an 11 gig card in 2016. So what are we doing here? So for the components and storage, we go to the GPU and graphics cards, and we just kind of sort and see what's there. You've got a couple of different lines. I'm very familiar with the NVIDIA-based cards, so that's what we're going to be talking about. I don't know much about the Radeon series, so we're just going to stick with sold by Newegg because you don't want to support the scalpers. And with NVIDIA, you have the anywhere from the 10 series, right? 10, 20, 30, 40, and now the 50 series. The higher the number of the card, the better it would be. So you have like 4050, which is the lowest, 4090, which is the highest. Likewise with the 50 series, which is not all out yet right now, the 5090 being the highest, and then the 5070, I think is what they're doing at the lowest, maybe the 5060 being the lowest. So right here, we just see that there's a couple out there, the 4060 sort of cards. And when it comes to graphics cards, it is going to be an expensive piece and probably one of the most expensive parts of your entire build, because it's going to be controlling most of what people want to do, which is going to be gaming. And for me, it's going to be gaming, recording, streaming, editing, sometimes all of those at once. So my card has to be beefy enough, but also can't break the bank, can't be the same price as the rest of the components, and also can't create so much heat that the entire system is just brought to its knees because it's just overheating the entire case. So keeping all that in mind, when we look through cases and look through these parts, I used to recommend EVGA and ASUS for the particular graphics cards. Those are the best. Well, EVGA decided to say, nope, NVIDIA, we're out. We don't like dealing with this, so we're done making cards. Okay, so now it's just pretty much ASUS. I don't think you'd have any real problems going with Gigabyte or MSI, but I would go Gigabyte and then MSI and then anybody else. It's just kind of one of those things that if you're at a point where you can't get anything, then something's better than nothing. But for this video, we're just going to search ASUS, MSI, and Gigabyte, and that will be getting us the NVIDIA side of things. We're just going to go for the 50, 40, and 30 series. And that gives us 9 pages. Wow. Hold on. I could probably get rid of that by doing condition new. 3 pages of graphics cards. And if we just do highest price, the highest one that's available, that's not available, that's out of stock. So most expensive, ASUS 5090. Let's go down, view details, but they're all out of stock, out of stock, out of stock. Boy, what graphics card are we going to pick today? Well, thankfully for me, I actually was able to get my hands on an absolutely free 3080 graphics card that I'm currently using in my build. I upgraded it about a year ago or so, and it's been a nice card. So I'm going to use that card again because I don't have a desire to go out and spend, $1,000 something on a card, or really try to wait and hopefully get one. They don't even have prices on this 5070. Like we're on page 2, and all of this is still just out of stock. You're talking 5070 being $550. That's okay of a price, but only 12 gigs of RAM. And then the Ti being $250 more, well, surely it can't be worth that much more for performance. And then when you get down to the comparison sake of, okay, well, this one is equivalent to the previous generation's 4080 series, I'm not really into any of that as well. I don't even know what this video is going to have a purpose in, honestly. I don't know what any of my videos have a purpose in. But there's just, all these are just like out of stock. So this video is kind of really funny to make because everything is just out of stock because NVIDIA just released the 50 series. The 40 series isn't made anymore. The 50 series isn't available anymore. So for the entire video, boom, what we've got here is we're going to go to the video card, choose a video card. We have the Asus 3080. It was Strix Gaming. It was not a Ti. It looked kind of like that. but it wasn't 12 gigs. It was only 10 gigs. Let's say something like this. It was 10 gigs. It wasn't tough gaming. It was Strix gaming. Was it V2? I don't even know. I don't even know what it was. Doesn't really matter. But we're just going to go ahead and just add that one right there. So we know the power requirements. We know kind of everything that we're going for. But that's the one that I already have. There's no prices available because there's not going to be prices available on anything because everything is out of stock. But this 3080, the 10 gigs is really disgusting that the 3080 actually has less gigs of RAM than my 1080 Ti, but it does have a lot of the other RTX features that make it a better card and a lot of things that will allow it to use AI and do all these other fancy little things. It does have better memory bandwidth and everything, but really, just like with your other system, I want to have 96 gigs of RAM in this thing. I'd prefer to have a card that would have at least 24 gigs of VRAM. I feel like that would be a great sweet spot, but until I'm gifted a 50 series card for free, I don't plan on upgrading this thing for the life of this computer. These graphics cards are far too expensive. I'm not going to spend more money on a graphics card than I did my first car. That's my own personal rule, I guess. The most powerful piece of equipment in your PC should be your power supply. And we now know the exact estimated wattage that the entire system will pull if it were to be 100% maxed out, which is going to be right up here, 752 watts. We are never going to come close to reaching that amount, but you definitely want to buy a power supply that is going to be fitting the need of that and then give you some more overhead. You do not want to buy a 650. You don't even want to buy a 750. At this point, the good sweet range would be from an 850 to a 1000 watt power supply. If we planned on buying a brand new, much higher graphics card like the 50 series, we'd probably want to stick with like a 1200 watt power supply. But for this video, I think an 850 watt power supply is going to fit the need exactly what that we need to have fit. So as always, we go to the handy dandy website that is newegg.com, and we're going to go ahead and do components and storage power supplies. We're just going to be going for power supplies. They also have a power supply buying guide. Might be good as well. I don't know. Haven't used it. When it comes to power supplies, there's two main brands that I can recommend for their warranty and reliability. And it's going to be Corsair and Seasonic. I have more experience with Corsair power supplies, and they have usually a nice, robust 10-year warranty on them. Absolutely fantastic. My editing build that's mounted on the wall right now is using a 760AX power supply that was platinum rated from, maybe 2016 or earlier. Still running strong, still a fantastic power supply. And with power supplies, if you protect them electrically with something such as a universal or uninterruptible power supply, or UPS for short, then you will have a fantastic long life to your computer, usually lasting the entire length of the system. And good power supplies, such as Corsair and Seasonic, if you happen to get a surge or a brownout, they will actually soak up and absorb the hit and protect your other components from being damaged. If you have a bad power supply, they get hit really hard, they're going to be like, no, I want out. And they're okay, but then your board or your processor dies. So you'd rather have the power supply go out versus those other components. When it comes to power supplies, you're going to want to make sure that they're going to be compatible with your case. And as you know, with our case, we're doing the Phanteks NV7, and that has plenty of room. Most of these power supplies are going to be standard in length. If they're anywhere from 500 to 1000 watts, generally they're going to be about the same size. You go smaller or get this SF, which for me stands for small form, might stand for something else. That's going to be a smaller form factor, but we don't need to worry about that because we're not doing a small build. Some of these other ones, that might be like greater than 1000 watts, like this one right here, this 1500 watt, you can just physically see the difference between just this Corsair one and this Rosewell one. Even though the Rosewell one is 1200 watts, you can see the physical difference in the length. And so if you have a small case that can't fit the particular power supply, that's something to keep in mind. But I know that ours will fit an 850 watt, no problem. When it comes to Corsair, they have two different variants really of positioning of their power supplies. The standard, which has all the cabling in the back, or the shift one, which has it on the side. That's going to be very case dependent as to whether or not that would actually work for you. But for our situation, we're not going to go with the shift. We're just going to go with the standard power supplies. Let's see, brands to avoid. Rosewell, MSI, ASRock, Thermaltake. Not familiar with ABS power supplies, but probably. And this one is going to be the most difficult for you guys to hear. Avoid EVGA power supplies. They're a distant third because it goes Corsair, Seasonic, and then EVGA. It's sad. It's unfortunate. Even if they're gold rated, even if they have a 10-year warranty, even if they're top of the top, those are more susceptible to the problems. Corsair power supplies, just like the Corsair all-in-one coolers and the Samsung SSDs and a lot of things in this build that we've been going through, I've sold and supported thousands of them and have had zero problem, except one guy that spilled coffee in it, but that's going to be a problem no matter what. ASUS-based power supplies, I don't have enough experience with. They seem pretty decent, but I just don't know enough about to know whether or not they'd be decent. So we're going to sort again by Newegg, and we're going to just search Corsair in this case. Corsair, Newegg, and of course we want to go for, we're going to go, you have all these different wattages. We're going to go for 800 watt to 899 watt because I feel like that will fit the bill perfectly. I've done a video on unboxing the Corsair RM650 or 750 power supply, and all of those are pretty much the same. It's just a higher wattage if you go from the 650 to the 850. And you can see here some differences. You have the E, and then you have the X series. They have different standards, I guess. So we'll just compare these two right here. This is the 850 watt 10-year warranties to them. Both of these are 850 watts. I'm sad to see that they got rid of their AX series power supplies at this range, and you can only get the H series for the really high-end platinum ones. So definitely some changes there, but we're going to go through and see what our needs will be. So on here, this is between the RM850X and the RM850E. Both of these are ATX 3.1 compatible, and both of these probably have a power cable that will come with them. Let me show that to you. Something like this bad boy right here. I do not, fine, don't get bigger. I didn't want you to get bigger anyway. This is going to be the standardized cable for the newer series of video cards, and it's just kind of a one cable situation. That's a little bit nicer because then you don't have to worry about having all these different PCI Express cables. But when it comes to power supplies, you want to make sure that if as many Molex connections as you need, as many SATA connections as you need, it comes with all those cables. And modular power supplies have a ability to just be like a little bit better than standard power supplies, mainly because they will allow you to pick exactly what cables you want to use. Yeah, you can shove all those other cables somewhere else, but it prevents you from having as nice of a clean of a run as you could possibly have, and just kind of creates more clutter inside the system. It doesn't really stutter airflow all that much, but that's still, at the end of the day, you want it to be as clean and nice looking as possible. These are the type of cables that you want to have. And any fully modular power supply is definitely what I would be recommending. Let's see what the E had standard instead. I think it's going to be... You're not going to show me the cables? Okie dokie then. Well, then let's see here if they can show any comparison differences besides a $5 price. It seems that the RMX has more cables, so I'd go for the RMX. And let's go back here and go to Seasonic just to see what they've got as well. Also recommend gold-rated power supplies because the gold-rated is usually going to have a 5-year warranty. This one right here, this is gold with a 12-year warranty. Now, let's check out that bad boy. But usually the higher the element, gold is really nice, but what's better? Platinum. What's better than that? Titanium? Or reverse it. Let's see based on price. 1616. Probably platinum would be better for Seasonic than titanium. 12-year worry-free warranty on the platinum, the gold, and the titanium. So they're all kind of the same there. So if we would be looking at this, 8TX, 850 watt gold. Let's see if we can see all the... I mean, look at all those different cable and connections it comes with. It has a ton that it offers here. Very, very nice. Two CPUs, PCI Express. This does not have that fancier version, the ATX 3.1 sort of standard. They all kind of have these separate PCIs. Why would you get fanless? Don't buy fanless. Get a fan. So reiterating, the key takeaways though is you want to make sure that the wattage fits. 850 is a great sweet spot. The brand fits, Corsair or Seasonic, because they have a 10 to 12-year warranty, which is fantastic. Full modularity, which will help you create cleaner looks for your build, as well as having all the cable connections that you would need. Now we go back over here to the power supply. I actually am going to be reusing my Corsair. I have an 860 watt power supply, platinum. There's no price on it, obviously, because I bought it who knows how long ago, but I've got an 860 watt power supply that goes into my system. It's currently in use, and it will work perfectly fine with what I'm going for. Next video, they have pictures of it. That's kind of cool. It might be a little light on some of those cables. I feel like I had more than that. It also, I feel like it looked a little bit different, but I know it was an 860 watt power supply because that's what I installed in the system. And I can see the box from here that says AX 860. So that is going to be another power supply. If you buy a good power supply and you protect it electrically, you can use it throughout multiple builds as well. So it's worth the investment from anywhere from like $150 to a $250 power supply. It's worth it because in the long run, you're going to protect your equipment and it's going to last longer. Don't fall for the traps of wanting to buy something cheap just to get the build done. It is worth it to save up your money for 6 more months to buy what you really want to have versus spending your money and buying something that just gets the job done now, but you have problems with it in 2 or 3 years. Tons of times I'm fixing computers that are not even 3 years old and they already have part failure. That's abysmally bad. like I said, every computer I've ever built, it lasts until I want to replace it, not the other way around. Not where it's forcing me to like, oh man, I have to upgrade. So thank you so much for watching this video, checking out the playlist if you haven't already. I think I'm going to do one more video. Let me know if you want to see it, where we talk kind of about like accessory pieces, you know, headphones, speakers, mice, keyboards, those sort of things. I have all those accessories from several years ago, so I don't need to buy them. But when you're building a computer, you want to build with a nice mouse and a nice keyboard. But a lot of those have feels and everything. So let's not make this outro too long. Let's just keep on going through. Oh, are there any disclaimers? Some Intel Z890 chipset motherboards may need a BIOS update to fully utilize 48 gig RAM modules. That is very important to know. Some physical constraints are not checked as RAM clearance with CPU coolers. That would not be an issue because I know the all-in-one cooler and anything will not have any problems there. That BIOS update is good to know. I might have to swipe and use a different stick of RAM if it cannot allocate 48 gigs per slot, but I think we should be okay in that regard. PC part picker showing that. That's quite nice. Quite nice to see. And let's see, what are they? That's kind of cool. Expansion slots, what we're going to be using, what's going everywhere. Look at all those M.2s. Crazy. You don't want to use a whole bunch of them, though, because then you're going to get rid of space. You're going to get rid of bandwidth. Now, how exactly accurate this whole thing is as well, I can't tell you, but I know that the compatibility list is there. The wattage should be there. Fantastic for that. So thank you so much for checking out this video. I hope you found it helpful. Give it a thumbs up if it was helpful for you. Leave a comment down below if you have any questions or if you want to tell me what your particular build is. Or you can always tag me on Instagram at TheDonTech and show me any of your builds as well. I'd love to look at them, respond to them, comment on them, critique them, or anything, and just even give you general praise for how you've built a computer. If you have any questions on how to build a computer, I've got the build guides, which might be a title card around here somewhere, but also in the description down below on how to step-by-step build a computer in the perfect way possible. So thank you so much again for watching. This has been The Don. This has been The Don Tech. And remember, the Dons got your back.